Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is my review for Agent Carter Season 1, Episode 3, Time and Tide. And this episode, I was definitely looking forward to it because, the first two episodes really surprised me. I was very pleasantly surprised by the first two episodes. I really enjoyed them. I thought they were both very, very solid. And this episode, while it was very good, I thought the first episode was definitely a lot stronger. This episode was very, very good, but it was definitely not as good as the first two. I wasn't as into it. I didn't like it as much, but I still really enjoyed it, and I definitely do want to talk about it. And a lot, I wouldn't say, there was some stuff, there was a lot that happened this episode, but at the same time, there wasn't. But I do like that it is a very slow moving show, which is fine. But it's slow moving. Okay, it's not like Agents of Shield where it's like very fast paced, and I'm fine that it's slow moving. But let's just get to this episode because overall I really did enjoy it, but it definitely was not as good as the first two. It still was a great episode though. So we see a man in a suit. He's sitting outside of the Griffith Hotel. He's looking up at Peggy's room, and inside Peggy looks at a sketch of the broken heart drawing that Brannis made before he died. She looks it up in a book of symbols, and then hears a noise from outside, draws a gun on the climber, and discovers that it's a soldier, Jimmy. And he says that his girlfriend, Molly Brown, lives there, and Peggy directs him to the next window over. So Jack and Ray, they'll go to Brannis' room in a rundown part of town and search the room. They find a number of fake IDs and the typewriter with a transmitter attached. So the next day that was definitely very interesting what happened there. So the next day at the Griffith, Peggy's having breakfast with the other women while Molly comes down and admits that she had a late night, and Peggy says that she's too busy with work right now. Angie asks her about Jarvis, and, Peggy is saying that he's just a colleague. She obviously is not going to blow her cover to them, because she has to be very careful what she's doing because it could cost her a job. It could cause her a lot of things, definitely. So she definitely does not want, and I like how secret she's keeping, what's actually going on between Jarvis and Peggy. I definitely really enjoy that. So as she gets up to go, Miriam tells her to wait and reminds everyone that men are not allowed above the first floor. She then evicts Molly, who begs for a second chance, and Miriam refuses and assures the others that the building is impenetrable. And once she leaves, Peggy tells Angie that she doesn't believe it and goes off. So, and I gotta say, one of the things I definitely am liking about the show is the relation between Peggy and Angie. Really, we see in this episode that Angie actually is a very nice girl who wants to be a friend to Peggy, and I am really enjoying her character, but... So the next day at the Griffith, Peggy is having breakfast with the other... Oh, I just read this. So at SSR, Ray and Jack tell Roger what they have on Brannis, including the fact that his voice box was cut out. Because if you remember, Brannis, his character is very interesting. Because, I like that we're finding out more about him. He clearly is going to be the villain of the season. So... He was Russian. He died 2 years ago in the Battle of Finno in Germany. But, of course, Peggy killed him. So, obviously, he's not the villain of the season. But I do like that we're finding out more about him. So, lab technicians have identified the typewriter as a long-range transmitter. And Jack goes to run Brannis' photo past his contacts in the embassy. Daniel comes in, Souza, and says that they've identified the license plate from the factory wreckage to Howard Stark, and Roger tells him to find out who the driver was. Now, one of the things I am liking is that this is not a procedural show. This is not, let's catch this, let's catch this person of the week. It's not like that. I like that it's actually serial. I definitely really enjoy that, and I like that this was a small location. Even though Brannis is dead, they're still investigating about, which I actually think is very interesting. I do actually really enjoy that. I think it's like the first superhero show to actually do that, where they don't do like, let's catch this person or catch that person. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did that, yes, but this show is more in the vein of, Arrow or The Flash, so I like that they actually didn't do that. So Jarvis slips out of his house to join Peggy when she shows up at his doorstep, and she says that she wants to see how someone penetrated Howard's impenetrable vault. So they go to the main house, and Jarvis explains that a thunderstorm knocked out the alarms on the night of the robbery, and they're interrupted when Souza and Jack knock at the door, and Jarvis answers it while Peggy hides. They tell the butler that they found the bumper of the car. Jarvis points out that he reported the car stolen several days ago, because I, of course, was wondering what happened to his car. But Jack says that they have more questions, and Edwin has, basically Jarvis has no choice but to go with them. So their conversation, unfortunately, is cut short. So at SSR headquarters, Peggy arrives as Ray tries to get someone to cover for him that night. She then goes into the observation room with Roger and Daniel as Jack interrogates Jarvis. Roger figures that Jarvis was driving the getaway car. Meanwhile, Jack questions Jarvis about the dead man who were selling Howard's weapon technology. And Edwin, basically, Jarvis insists that Howard's an innocent man. He's like, oh, he's an innocent man, don't worry about him, he did nothing wrong. And Jack glances back at the two-way mirror. He then points out that Jarvis was charged with treason and suggests that the charges were dropped because Howard paid a pride, and Jarvis received a dishonorable discharge, and Jack threatened to release the information to immigration. When the agent threatens to tell Edwin warns him to keep his wife out of it, and basically, Jarvis is very concerned. He doesn't want his wife to find out anything that's going on. He doesn't want her involved, and I definitely think it's very interesting the way they're trying not to get anyone involved with this. So Peggy goes back to her desk, and Ray asks her to take his shift. She ignores him, gets a file, and gets back to the observation room. She says that she needs Roger's signature, and once Roger signs it, Peggy takes the stolen car file and Edwin, on Jarvis, and leaves. Jack leaves, meets with Roger outside. Peggy listens as the director tells Jack to focus on Anna. They go in, and Peggy interrupts and apologizes for taking the report and taking advantage of the interruption. And Jarvis says that he's leaving and tells him to contact Howard's lawyers if they want anything else from him. Roger chews out Peggy for messing up the interrogation. She has no choice but to apologize for ruining Jack's work, and Roger orders her out. So basically, Peggy was fired, definitely would happen. That was definitely very big when that happened. I didn't think that was going to happen, but Peggy got kicked out, so that was definitely very interesting, and I didn't think that was going to happen, but that was very well done. So back at the hotel, Peggy dresses for a mission, and once again, she's going undercover, and Angie arrives at her door, and she quickly puts on a robe, hides her equipment. The waitress sits down, tries to talk, suggests that they have a drink, and shares notes about their crappy days. Peggy begs off, and Angie takes offense, figuring that she's getting a brush off. Obviously, Angie still thinks that Peggy wants nothing to do with her, because she's still treating her like she is just, like she doesn't give a shit about her. That's still how Peggy's treating her, and I really feel that, Angie does not deserve this, because Angie's actually being a very good friend to Peggy, and really just wants to be a good friend to her, and wants to give her, a good life, so, good home, support her with things, and I don't think Peggy really understands that, and I really think I really do feel bad for Angie because of that, because Peggy doesn't really understand that all Angie wants to do is take care of her and be there for her, so I really, I feel bad for Angie, definitely. So as she leaves, Miriam introduces them to their new resident, Dottie Underwood, who is a new character, and Angie goes to her room. Peggy wishes Dottie luck, and later Peggy goes to Howard's mansion and asks Jarvis if he has anything else to tell her, because, their conversation, of course, was cut short before, so they decide to continue the conversation, and he says that he doesn't, and they go to the vault. They climb down the hole into the sewers. Peggy realizes that Jarvis has climbing equipment. They drop down, and Peggy says that she doesn't need to know the details of his past. She figures all Brandis needed to do was use a raft and float the stolen items down the flooded sewer tunnel. And at SSR headquarters, Jack leaves Ray and Souza on night shift, and Ray figures that Souza's sweet on Peggy and says that no girl's going to settle for a one-legged man after having Captain America. And wow, Ray is a douchebag. He is a total douchebag, and he clearly wants nothing to do with Peggy, and I honestly felt so bad for Souza when he said that. I mean, Souza, he really does like her, and as I said before, I definitely think that Souza and Peggy end up getting married, because we know that she married someone, and I kind of feel like Souza's the guy she married. So I really do feel bad for that, for Souza, because all Souza's trying to do is help her through this. He's helping her cope through this. He can understand what she's going through, and he's trying to pick her up off her feet. He's just being a good friend to her. He never said he had any romantic feelings towards her, and wow, Ray is a total douchebag. So Peggy finally tells Jarvis that she needs to know his past if they're gonna work together, and he finally explains that he traveled with the general and met Anna in Budapest before the war. She was Jewish, and the general refused to grant her a letter of transit, so Jarvis stole one and forged his name. They arrested Jarvis, and Howard used his influence to get him cleared. And Anna out of Budapest, they head the river ahead, and Jarvis says that Anna doesn't know about his current activities for Howard. They come to the rivers and spot a nearby boat, and Peggy spots the broken heart symbol on the smokestack. And, yeah, so that was definitely very interesting. So emerging from the sewers, Jarvis and Peggy drive to the docks, and I like finding out more about Jarvis's past. I definitely really like that. I mean, everyone said it, and I have to agree. Jarvis is the best character on the show. He's the most interesting because, of course, Jarvis is the most interesting character because we know what that's going to lead to. We know that Jarvis ends up becoming a father, basically, to Tony Stark, and that's what's going to be very interesting, seeing how we get to that. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where we're going to go with that. So basically, them emerging from the sewers, Peggy and Jarvis drive to the docks. They realize that someone is still aboard, and Jarvis buys a gun from Peggy. As they approach the ship, a man watches from the shadows. The duo goes up the gangplank, down into the fold, and finds a pile of crates. Peggy opens one, finds the device that Jarvis explains the muscular contractor. She goes to call it in. Jarvis points out that she can't report the stolen equipment before blowing her cover. All she can do is place herself under suspicion, and Jarvis warns her that they'll only tear her down, and he tells Peggy that she has to clear Howard's name from the shadows, and after a moment, Peggy tells Jarvis to call it in from across the street and let Souza get the credit. So at SSR headquarters, Daniel takes a call, and Jarvis fakes an American accent. He gives the agent directions to the ship, and Souza starts to ask questions. Jarvis hangs up, and basically, that's what happened there. So he basically made him think that Daniel, he basically made Souza do all the work. So Souza and Ray head for the ship, and this huge man, Jerome Zando, enters the hold and charges at Peggy, knocks her to the floor, loses her gun, tells her that it won't make a difference that she's a woman. They fight, and after a vicious struggle, it's actually kind of a funny scene because Zando pins Peggy to a crate and chokes her, but then out of nowhere, Jarvis acts from behind, distracting him long enough for Peggy to use the contractor on him. Zando's muscles contract, snapping his arm bones, and Peggy knocks him out with a pipe. And I thought that was kind of funny, because she's just like, alright then, well that was quick, come on, let's be on our way. And I thought that was definitely really funny. And I like that this show does play a lot of comedy. It's very, very good when they do that, and I like the show isn't afraid to have some fun, definitely. While the show I wouldn't say is a full-on comedy, I mean it's a full-on fun show, it is pretty much just a fun show, it really is, which I like about the show. So siren sound, and Jarvis says they have to go and leave Zando behind. And Daniel and Rafe arrive and find the unconscious man, the stolen weaponry. And Ray figures that they're set for promotions, but Daniel points out that basically Souza points out that someone is setting them up. He can clearly tell that something is not right here, which of course is true, because Jarvis basically wanted Souza to get all the credit and basically, look like a hero. So they call in their colleagues and haul out Zando, and Roger wonders why Zando was just waiting there with the stolen weapons and tells the agents to get it back to SSR headquarters ASAP. And as Ray drives Zando back into the lead car, the strawman asks the English broad was working with SSR. They come to train crossing. Ray is forced to stop. A car bumps into them. Ray goes back to complain. Driver shoots him dead. He then kills Zando, drives away, and Ray is dead. And I'm very happy that Ray died. He was being a douchebag to Peggy, and Ray dying is actually a very good thing, because I really like the way the show plays with emotion. So the next day, Peggy arrives at work and finds the operators crying. Rose tells her that Ray was killed. The agents are all stricken silent as well and have left a wreath on Ray's desk. And I kind of feel like this is going to lead to Souza now taking his position. That's where this is going to lead to. Souza's now going to take his position, and if that's true that Souza takes his position, then definitely this is going to run a lot more smoothly, because Souza's the only one that really doesn't harass Peggy. I mean, when he's with her, he doesn't. Everyone else thinks he does, but he doesn't really harass her, and he really does care about her. So Daniel tells her, reminds him of the war. Jack explains that a professional killed Ray and Zando, and Souza vows to find the killer. Roger comes out and tells everyone not to forget that Howard is ultimately responsible for Ray's death, and he tells him to get him action plans within the hour and goes to call Ray's wife with the news. And basically this is how the episode ends. That night, Peggy goes to the automat, sits down at the counter. Angie comes over, and Peggy asks if she could tell her friend about her day. Angie agrees, and Peggy explains that one of her 2 co-workers died suddenly. She admits they weren't close, and the man was kind of a jerk, but he was good at his job. And Angie asks what she can do. Peggy asks if she still has the bottle. The waitress agrees and says that she'll clock out, and they can go back to the hotel, and you can definitely tell that Peggy and Angie are going to be alright now. And that's basically how the episode ends. Now, overall, what I think of this episode, I actually have some complaints about the show now. I feel like there's not enough happening. I mean, there's stuff happening, but I wasn't really as interested in the stuff that happened that was really big. I wasn't very as interested as I wanted to be. And I just feel this show is a little bit too slow. I do. I feel they have 8 episodes. Next episode, they're going to be halfway through the season, and they need to get things to pick up a little bit. I definitely want to see things pick up. I do like this. It's a fun show. I think there's some really great stuff about it. It's definitely keeping me interested. I'm not, losing focus or anything. But I definitely want more things to start happening. It looks like in the next episode, it's all going to focus around Captain America and something that she needs to do to protect Steve. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But I want to talk about a few things. First of all, Peggy and Angie, it seems like they're going to be really good friends now. It seems like Angie, I think Angie's going to end up replacing Colleen, definitely. But I kind of feel like Angie might end up with the same fate as Colleen because of what ends up happening. If Peggy doesn't tell her secret, though, is something bad happen to Angie? Is she going to tell her secret? What's going to happen there? I'm definitely interested in seeing what's going to happen. Souza now I feel is going to take over for Ray. I definitely feel that's what's going to happen, and I really hope that does happen because I really like Souza's character, and he's really only one that cares for Peggy, so I'm interested in seeing where that's going to go. Jarvis, will Souza find out that he was set up by Jarvis? Will he find out that Jarvis set the whole thing up? That's going to be interesting to see what happens. Now, the other thing I like with Jarvis and Peggy is, Peggy's still secretly doing this and everything. Is this going to keep... I definitely feel that eventually someone's going to blow her cover. Someone's going to have to, and this can't go on for forever. So I really feel that at some point that Peggy's going to get that cover blown, and it's not going to work out well for her. But basically, Peggy... it's going to be interesting to see what happens between her and Jarvis. And overall, guys, I know this was a shorter review. I really don't have too much to say about this episode other than I really liked it. That's basically for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw of this episode. Overall, I thought this was a good episode, just not as good as the first two, but I still really enjoyed it. Also, I love the whole recapping things they're doing, where she's like, I am Peggy Carter. And it's really funny because, of course, they do that with The Flash and Arrow when they do the recap, so I think it's funny they're doing it with Agent Carter, and I definitely really enjoyed that. But that's basically this video. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of American Horror Story Freak Show. So we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.